I've wanted a smartwatch for years now. I waited past the very first Pebble watches and I easily passed by the Samsung Galaxy Gears. I almost gave in when the Moto 360 came out, but I decided to wait just a little bit longer for Apple's solution. I waited for the Apple Watch. So this is it. This is the Apple Watch. It's available in 3 models: Sport, Classic, and Edition. The Sport ranges from $349 to $499. The Classic, or regular Apple Watch, ranges from $549 to $1,099, and the Edition ranges from, well, $10,000 and up. I decided to go with the 42mm Space Gray Sport Watch. I picked this specific watch for a few reasons. 1, the Space Gray looks great on the Sport Watch, and 2, it was one of the least expensive models that you could pick up. Although it's not the circular shape that so many were hoping for, I really do like the design and body style of the Apple Watch. On the right side of the device sits 2 buttons. Up top, the digital crown, and down below, the side button. The digital crown is interesting. To say the least, it's not something that you'll find on any other smartwatch that I'm currently aware of. You can click on the side of the digital crown and use it as a home button, but the main feature here is scrolling. And I gotta give some props to Apple here for implementing the crown so well. I assumed that like on any other iOS device, I would prefer to scroll on the watch with my finger than using the crown, but I was wrong. The crown feels incredibly natural to use, and other than that, it just works great. You can also invoke a few other software features using the digital crown. For example, holding down on the crown for a few seconds will bring up Siri, and double-clicking on it will take you back to the app that you were previously using. Below the crown sits the side button. A lame name I know, but that's what they're calling it. Like the digital crown, it can also perform a few different software functions. Clicking the side button once brings up the Friends UI, holding down on the side button for a few seconds brings up the power down screen, and double tapping on the side button takes you to the Apple Pay screen. Performing these actions off screen is critical because if you hadn't noticed, the screen on the Apple Watch is small. Really, really small. The Apple Watch does have a Retina display though, and it looks great as you had probably guessed. Although you can just start to make out individual pixels when raising the watch directly up to your eye, you'll have no complaints about the display when viewing it normally from just a few inches away. It looks great. Surprisingly, this little screen is great at notification handling. With actionable notifications added with iOS 8, I can, for example, archive an email straight from my Apple Watch without even launching the third-party email client that I'm using called Mailbox on my iPhone. It's a whole lot easier to just handle notifications individually instead of dealing with a group of them every time I pull out my iPhone. What's different about this Apple Watch's display, however, is something that you won't really notice at all until you compare it to an iPhone. Here's an Apple Watch on the left next to an iPhone 6 on the right in a completely dark environment. While the display of the watch continues to look completely black, it actually looks really cool like the watch is just floating in midair. The iPhone screen has that bluish light leak tint to it and it just doesn't look great. If you take one thing away from the Apple Watch's display, know that it has excellent black levels. There's also some other cool technology in the Apple Watch, like the Taptic Engine for example, which makes vibrations feel like genuine, nearly human taps versus an earthquake happening right on your wrist. There's also a neat heart rate sensor on the back of the Apple Watch that automatically records your heart rate at various points throughout the day as well as when you're doing a workout. Securely latching onto the top and bottom of the Apple Watch is the band. The watch I ordered came with the Sport band by default, and as of right now, I don't plan on buying any other more expensive bands. Although many people have criticized the Sport band as looking and feeling cheap, I disagree. The watch and band are so comfortable together that most of the time I barely even notice it sitting on my wrist. Apple nailed it with the Sport band. Sport. You've heard me mention it more than a few times now. Other than price point and design, there are a few more reasons I decided to pick this model over the others. I'm an active person and I've wanted a lightweight fitness tracker for a while now. An iPhone generally has to be strapped to your arm or held when you're doing any form of exercise, and it just feels like a bulky addition. I wanted something that blended into my workout that didn't feel like an add-on. The Apple Watch is that something. After exercising with both the Apple Watch and iPhone once or twice to initially calibrate them with your stride, You can exercise with them from then on out with only the watch. And it should be awesome. But more often than not, I'm finding that the fitness tracking just isn't there yet. After calibrating the watch with the phone as instructed, I ran 4 laps around a track with only the watch that should have calculated exactly a mile. But the watch registered it as 1.1 or 1.2 miles or something. As much as I hate to say it, the tracking just isn't there yet. Now this could very well be an isolated incident, but now I second guess how far I've actually run whenever I use just the watch. Apps on Apple Watch are another area that must be improved. Right now apps work okay, but the big problem here is that they are so incredibly slow because to load anything, they're pulling information off of your phone. In too many cases, it's faster to take your phone out of your pocket and just browse the same apps there. I found myself using apps on Apple Watch because I feel I need to, not always because I want to. But it all depends on the app. Shazam, for example, works fantastically, and I really do enjoy using it on my watch. Others, like Twitter, however, are far less optimized. Loading tweets takes about 2 to 3 times as long on the Apple Watch as it does to just take your phone out of your pocket and start browsing Twitter from there. It's pretty ridiculous. But there is some good news. At Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference this month, they announced native apps for the Apple Watch. Now apps will have data preloaded directly onto the watch, so loading them should be much faster than before. That being said, the software update promising this feature and more is said to launch in the fall of 2015, probably September, November sometime, which is obviously a few months away. Along with apps, this overall feeling of sluggishness is a trend for the Apple Watch. Many animations lag even if only for a second, and it just makes the watch feel slower than it actually is. You'll even notice lag when going from the clock app just to the normal screen of apps on the Apple Watch, or head over to your glances view and try scrolling through those, especially some that you haven't loaded for quite some time, and you will see a frame rate drop like none other. I don't want to make it sound like the Apple Watch's operating system, watchOS, is unusably slow. It's not. It just isn't exactly fast either. The final thing I want to talk about regarding Apple Watch is battery life, something that I know many of you out there are concerned about. And by far, this was my biggest concern pre-Apple Watch as well, but I'm satisfied to say that it's my smallest concern now. I'm just going to get it out right off the bat. You're going to have to charge the Apple Watch every single night. That's just a fact that we have to accept. I usually end the day with around 50% of my battery left, but I can't comfortably make it to the next day without charging it at night. While it is possible to squeeze 2 days of very light usage out of the Apple Watch, those instances will be few and far in between. And that's the Apple Watch. Everything you love about your iPhone stored conveniently on your wrist. Convenience. It's a recurring theme here. I could take my iPhone out of my pocket and send a text, but I could also just dictate a message on my Apple Watch. I could make a phone call on my iPhone, but it's much more fun to call someone with your Apple Watch. I could look at the notification I just received on my iPhone, but it's much easier to just simply raise my wrist. I think the Apple Watch is a revolutionary product. I really do. But people just don't get it yet. Think of it this way. It's the same mentality everyone had about smartphones before everyone had a smartphone. We don't need a phone to do anything more than call people. We want it to do more. We want to be able to check our email at will, we want to be constantly browsing Twitter, and we want to text people nonstop. These are things that we want to do. I want to wear an Apple Watch because I have wanted a really good smartwatch for a long time. Is it necessary? No. Does it do everything that my iPhone already does? Pretty much. Is it expensive? Well, it depends on who you ask. But is it not awesome to be almost wearing an iPhone on your wrist? I don't think anyone can deny that. For me, the Apple Watch is worth it. But for you, well, let me ask one thing. What's the price you're willing to spend on convenience? Or is the iPhone that you already own convenient enough? I think the Apple Watch is a fantastic first-generation product. But only time will tell if everyone else is thinking the exact same thing.